Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and today's challenge, a bunch of you wanted me to use the SKS Designated Marksman Rifle with the suppressor and the iron sights. I have not contemplated punching a baby seal in quite some time, but for whatever reason, this was an extremely rage-inducing setup. Normally, I would say that the SKS is a decent weapon. It's fairly effective at taking out targets at medium to long range. It's got a high rate of fire, at least out of the Designated Marksman Rifles. It's an accurate gun. Normally, if you use it appropriately, it's okay. But because I'm using the iron sights, which basically force me to play aggressively and get up close and personal, and because I'm using the suppressor, this was just ridiculously hard to do well with. And I don't know if it was just because I was going against players that knew what they were doing. They were very skillful. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset and I was just off. But I had such a hard time going on kill streaks. And what it really just came down to were the iron sights. Like, when I first started using the SKS, I thought the iron sights were decent. It didn't obstruct your vision too much as long as you were playing aggressively. You could see what was going on around you. But then I quickly realized, after just a couple of rounds, that the further out the target goes, because just the way that the iron sights are situated, trying to identify and trying to attack or track a target at medium to long range becomes very, very challenging. And so you guys will probably see throughout today's video, because of just the way that the iron sights are positioned, I was basically forced to run around aggressively. And if you guys have ever used a Designated Marksman Rifle, that is definitely not the way you want to handle things. And the main reason behind that is that the damage model really benefits only medium to long range combat. Up close and personal, the SKS does 43 damage per shot, which sounds awesome, but the downside of it is that you still need to get 3 bullets into your enemy to drop someone within 10 meters. And then its long range damage, or at around 60 meters out, it's going to do 34 damage per shot. So basically the SKS is easily one of the most consistent weapons in the game. Actually, all the Designated Marksman Rifles at this point are very consistent, because as long as you get 3 bullets into your enemy, at all distances, as long as you're hitting them in the chest and not in the legs, you're gonna drop your target. Like, that is one of the best aspects of using these weapons. But as soon as you start to play aggressively with them, that advantage goes completely out the window. Like, the DMRs in this game do not have the RPM to back up an aggressive playstyle. Like, if you try to play up close and personal, because of that low RPM, you're gonna have a bad time. And while the SKS does have one of the highest rounds per minute, actually I think it does have the highest RPM out of the DMRs, coming in at 333, it's still pathetic if you compare that to pretty much any automatic weapon in the game. Like, most assault rifles have an average RPM of around 700 to 750. That's more than double the SKS, and while it will require 1 extra bullet with the assault rifle to drop someone up close, I would much rather have the higher RPM. Like, it's gonna give me a lot more room for air. If I miss 1 shot with the SKS, that's gonna mean the difference between life and death if they're right in front of me. If I miss 1 shot with a normal assault rifle, let's say like the AUG-3, that's fine. Like, I'm gonna have plenty of more bullets flying down range. The higher RPM is going to support that, and I'm gonna have a lot more room for air. And so hopefully it is becoming apparent why this was so difficult. Like, I needed to be extraordinarily accurate with all of my shots, because if I just missed 1 bullet into my enemy, I was probably gonna die 9 out of 10 times. If they were directly in front of me, I wasn't able to get that 1 shot into them, I was usually gonna be down on the ground. Not only that, but because it has a damage model that requires 3 bullets to take out someone up close, I also usually had to get a headshot in there as well if I wanted to win a firefight with someone who was using a high RPM weapon. If someone rounded the corner and they were using a FAMAS, if I wanted to win that firefight, I needed to get a headshot. And as you guys know, headshots usually aren't the easiest thing to get. I mean, that's why they have the headshot multiplier. But even if I am able to get a headshot, it still isn't going to drop them like one bullet like it was in Battlefield 3. It's still going to require 2 bullets. And then on top of that, if all that wasn't enough, it also has a pretty mediocre reload speed. Its short reload time is going to take you 2.3 seconds to go through the entire animation, but its long reload time is going to take you a staggering 3.5 seconds. While it's not too difficult to make sure that you're not going through the long reload time, because this is a single fire weapon and it does have 21 rounds in the magazine, I would say that those reload speeds, while not abysmal, like they're not the worst in the game, they're by no means the best. And then the final stat that we're going to look at is its recoil numbers. It's got a vertical recoil of 0.35, which is actually on the low end for the DMRs, and then a left kick of 0.3 and a right of 0.4. And so when I was using this setup, I basically just had to grit my teeth throughout the entire process. I tried out a bunch of different maps, I tried out a bunch of different game modes. everything I tried, it was basically just a flip of the coin if I was going to be successful. Like, I basically just had to outplay my enemy every single time, and trying to outplay everyone 100% is not easy, and so trying to get any good gameplay honestly was a nightmare. The one thing I could fall back on, which was helpful, was the suppressor, but it wasn't like the saving grace like it sometimes is. Like, sometimes I love the suppressor. It allows me to be that silent assassin, allows me to get up close and personal, flank my enemy, catch a lot of people by surprise, and while there were a few occasions when that worked, because the time to kill on this is so excessive, like it takes an absurd amount of time to usually take someone out, especially if they're moving. Like a moving target, like a medium distance, it's gonna take me a while to drop them. At that point, even though I do have the suppressor, either the person I'm shooting at has an idea of where I am, then they spot me, or the people around them will notice that the bullets are whizzing by, and then figure out where they're coming from. And so even though I was using the suppressor, and usually that would have been my saving grace, simply because the time to kill on this is so excessive, it wasn't as good as I first thought it was going to be. One thing that I did find really amusing though is that many people were accusing me of being a DMR noob, and my counter argument was just like, you gotta be kidding me, guys. Like, this is one of the hardest setups that I have ever done for this video series. Like, it may not be the top, like I've done some pretty outlandish and pretty ridiculous setups, but the fact that people were accusing me of being a noob and not knowing what I was doing, and that I was using a setup that, you know, doesn't require any skill, was just ridiculous. And I understand that the sound of the DMRs gets very annoying, like the psh psh psh. I get that. That is probably one of the most obnoxious sounds in Battlefield 4, but at the same time, it's like, it still requires skill. Like, I'm having to line up every single one of my shots just like you are. And probably the most ironic aspect of it is that these players that were accusing me of it were either using like the Ace-23, the M416, or these very top tier weapons. I wouldn't say that they're overpowered, but they're definitely one of the better class of guns in the game. And so coming from those guys, it was always amusing. I didn't let it get to me. Like, I think that people say that DMR spam or you're a DMR noob is a little ridiculous, but it was pretty funny to hear it coming from those guys. And so overall, this challenge was quite difficult. I know that many people really enjoy using the SKS. I mean, normally I would say it's one of the stronger designated marksman rifles in the game, but because of that iron sight, because I had to play aggressively, it's just not the way you're supposed to use the weapon, and because of that, this was a very difficult challenge. But that is about it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have a setup that you would like me to try next, let me know down below in the comment section, and also make sure to thumbs up those recommendations. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one, and take it easy.